name's Quin Hoffman with Irrational Passions. This is Alex O'Neill, also with Irrational Passions.
It's me.
We're at PAX West
2022.
2022. That's the year. Yeah. But no, we're just hanging out talking about games. Alex, what did you see today? What do you want to gab about?
I saw a few things. I really want to talk about Ghost Song because I've described this like now 4 times in front of you,
and you're like, I'm gonna write about the game, but I don't know if I want to write about the game.
I am probably still gonna write about it because I feel like I have a lot to say, but I think there is a point in talking about it that can actually have a conversation about it. So Ghost Song was a game I didn't help kickstart, but I've been aware of the Kickstarter. Like we used to do way back in like 2012 era of Irrational Passions, we used to do like Kickstarter selects or whatever.
Ooh, back when I was a baby.
Yeah, back when you were literally a child. 2012. Yeah, I think you were in middle school.
I was 13.
Yeah, so we don't do it anymore because like that was like when Kickstarter was a kind of new thing, and just in general, and crowdfunding video games was just a new thing in general. And a game called Ghost Song got kickstarted, and I had like kept my eye on it. And it's one of those things like I kind of check in on it every like 2 years. So like 2014, checked in on it. I like followed the one guy that's been making it on Twitter. And it's like a 2D Metroidvania with all hand-drawn art. Yeah. And it's funny, like playing, because it's apparently allegedly coming out this November. We'll see. Take the time. Let it cook. If it needs to cook, let it cook.
It's been cooking for 10 years.
Yes, for a while. And it's like one person. It's a passion project, clearly. And the person on Twitter, I was like checking it today because, again, this is a game I'd forgotten about for basically the last 3 years.
Yeah.
And I saw it and it was playable. And I was like, oh my God, this is here. I didn't even know that this was like happening, being published by Humble Games. And I looked him up. And he's like, yeah, this is basically done. There's a few things I want to do after out, and then I'm going to start working on like some other stuff that I've been thinking about for 10 years. He's been working on this one game. So it's a 2D hand-drawn Metroidvania that I don't even really remember like where the original pitch was and how this kind of varies from that, but I know it was about being atmospheric. It was about being like a very love letter to Metroid. Okay. Like you play like a power suit. It's called the Dead Suit, and
good name.
Yes, and you just kind of wake up on a mysterious like alien like planet as the Dead Suit, and there's like a female voice or a femme voice coming out of it. Yeah. And that's really all you know. Clearly, like this suit or the person in it doesn't really know who they are.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So you wake up on a mysterious island.
Yeah.
And Cortana's in your head.
No.
And you're like, bro.
No, you don't take a thing out and then like you erase an entire game. Like there's something to happen between 4 and 5. No. Doesn't matter. The Forerunners. No. So getting into the demo, again, I've had the kind of idea of this game in my head for so long. I wasn't really sure what to expect. It's very, very atmospheric, and I like that mechanically, it takes some stuff from like Dark Souls, from Metroid. The map is very Metroid. It's some familiar territory, but it just has this vibe that is very wholly unique to itself. Like you can shoot your gun fully auto, like rapid fire, but it like gets weaker over time as the gun arm like overheats. Okay. But then if your gun arm is blazing hot, you can melee and it'll do more damage because it's hot.
That's fun.
Which is like this cool. So you're attacking enemies from range until it's like less efficient, and then you're going up and hitting them, and it does like much more damage because you're at that. You can melee anytime. It takes stamina to do that, but it's kind of it has you playing this back and forth way of like going from one to the other, and I like that kind of feeding into each other. And just there's like this very unsettling atmosphere that is I was very, very immersed in, I'm sitting on a showroom floor and I hear like somebody like, and it's like that's happening somewhere in the background, and I just have to like tune that out. I was still really drawn into it because you're going through like this fog and these creatures are like coming out of the foreground and the background. It's all like visually, it's all kind of blending together in a way that it actually looks really cool and gross and creepy. Like it reminded me a lot of Alien or like classic Alien, which obviously.
You mean Aliens and Alien?
Sure.
Okay.
Like I mean, like not, the big Prometheus, like pale humanoid person alien. I'm not talking about that generation of alien. I'm talking about real Geiger alien vibes. But without pulling from like very recognizable iconography from that. And I like it because I really didn't know what was going to happen next at any given moment. And in a like 20 to 30 minute demo, which is on the longer side, I think that's really interesting that you can kind of evoke so much out of it. Like at one point, I like walked into what seemed to be like a destroyed station on this alien planet, and I'm going up an elevator, and someone starts like talking. I assume like from above the elevator or through comms on the elevator.
Was his name Andrew Ryan?
No, it was no Andrew Ryan. No like. Sweat entitled for the sort of his own bra. No, none of that.
Just making sure.
It was like a friendly voice. It's like, oh, who's in the elevator now? Is a friend coming to visit? And it was like this, both like, you can tell that this person isn't necessarily threatening, but it's kind of unsettling because it's like this very dark and spooky setting, and this kind of like overtly friendly voice is happening. And at some points, like the dead suit would like comment on things like, I kind of remember this. And like, or I would go up to a statue that you used to like level up and engage with some mechanics. And she's like, oh, you're one of, I'm so sorry. Or like something like that. Like there's like this knowledge that I'm interpreting a lot of things as they're happening. And I'm getting kind of answers, but I'm getting way more questions. And it doesn't feel arbitrary, right? Like it doesn't feel like, oh, I'm just some character that has lost their memory. Or like it felt like I was organically very thrown in that world and discovering things with the character I'm playing and reacting to them in real time together. And that just goes so far to create like an atmosphere. Like I truly, in this like 20 to 30 minutes, again, I don't know if it's like, I'm not trying to like oversell it as like 10 out of 10 crazy. Like there's some roughness to it and the way it feels and the jumping and stuff, but like it all went into the character of it all that created like this very cohesive piece that I was consuming. It was really interesting, and I've just not played really much like it. Benefit of like not going to events in a long time.
No, there sounds like there's a lot of intentionality to making the game feel organic.
Yeah.
And that's something like my favorite thing in games is like thinking about, does the world still exist outside of the character? If it does, that's the mark of like a truly great creative freedom. If the world revolves around the character, then there's less creative freedom happening.
Sure.
And this falls into the category of like, there's that organicness happening.
Yeah.
And that's really cool because that kind of level of interest and engagement shows that it wants to engage not only with an interesting like narrative as well as a interesting world, and building that world out, charting that world out with you. And going back to the combat thing, that sounds like a very interesting way of like kind of doing a risk or reward on top of min-maxing.
Yeah.
And like that's not something you really see in games. It's either like, oh, you go for the risk and you go for the reward, or like play it safe or whatever. But this is telling you like, hey, you have to engage with both at once.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of like, I mean, art is intentional in some capacity, but the way it wants you to very intentionally engage with it on its own terms is really fascinating too.
Yeah, and it felt like there was some flexibility and freedom in there too. Like if you wanted to keep using the arm cannon, even though it gets weaker and shoots like smaller bullets over time, you could, right? And you could like stay up on a ledge and shoot down at an enemy and play it safe. It would take a lot longer. But it definitely, it felt like arduous in a way that like felt intentional, which is cool. I always like mechanics that like push you out of your comfort zone. In a way that at least you like don't feel like hard pressed to do it, or it's not unenjoyable to do it. And it had a lot of those Soulsian mechanics, right? Like there was a statue, you go up and you can level up like stats like vigor or attack power or stamina, and you can kind of level those up individually, but your overall level is going up in the background, so it gets more expensive to level up the next thing. So they're not all on like the same footing. You can like min max if you wanted to, but also like there's just this weird feeling of like I don't know what to do, I don't know where to go, and that is also intentional on top of it. So anytime I'm engaging with anything, I'm kind of questioning it. So I don't know if I'm doing the right thing. I don't know if I'm leveling up the right way. I don't know. And the character's kind of in that same boat. And I just I was like very, very sucked into the world and the atmosphere. And I think I kind of anticipated it being like just space alien world that you're just exploring in a power suit, whatever. And then you like run into like a human person who's like, hey, are you friendly? I'm like, whoa, I didn't expect to talk to a person at all. And then I talked to him. He's like, yeah, I have a camp of humans. Like, are you hostile? And the dead suit's like, what do you mean hostile? Like, it's like, you're not trying to kill me, are you? He's like, no. It's like, so you're not hostile. And it's like this weird kind of like bringing it back to like, oh yeah, I don't really know what's going on at all or what anything is. So yeah, I liked that level of immersion, that kind of questioning everything. And just like shooting into an area and like something from the foreground coming out and coming toward you that you didn't expect is even still like just a little surprise that's really engaging and cool.
No, and it sounds like it's engaging with like, I always call like human nature is being curious. And like it sounds like it's engaging with that core idea of just like, we're going to make you really unsettled, but also make you really curious and want to keep going and keep on trying to uncover and take apart,
pull back the layers.
Kind of deal happening, and that's really cool. Because typically being curious and being unsettled are two different things. And so merging them allows for you to have this really cool experience that often isn't really replicated.
And like at some point I picked up like a dash that you could do in the air or on the ground, right? And that was like my one major Metroidvania upgrade. And then I got a spear that I equipped, and the spear engages in the same, like a stabbing spear as opposed to a tossing spear. And the spear also heats up with your arm cannon, right? So that became my melee. And then you could melee from a little bit more of a range, but you still engage with it in that same way. So it still has the fun like push and pull of like use the gun and then use the spear type deal, which is cool. I was like obviously very curious about this game. It's been on my radar for a while, but I haven't really known what was going on with it. Playing it is just so different than what I expected, but also like sucked me in a way that was like, oh man, I want to explore this world. I want to know what's going on here.
That sounds really fascinating.
It's cool. It was a cool demo. It left an impression on me, which I was not expecting. I was expecting to play and be like, cool, Metroidvania, I'm in, feels great, let's go. But instead I'm like, there's no charge beam here within the first 5 minutes, but I'm like absolutely obsessed with this weird elevator voice, and I don't know what any of this means or if I'll ever meet the person on the other end of it, but I want to know more. So that's cool.
That's fun. But no, we have more PAX West 2020 coverage. I may have written words. Alex will have written words. Mike Burgess over there is putting together all this video stuff. So, salute. Thank you, Mike. But until next time.
Bye. We love you. Bye.